Lesson 3C is simple interest. You're solving problems involving simple interests and then explaining that process to each other. In real life, you can use this skill to figure out how much money you owe in interest or how much money you earned in interest. If someone borrows money from a bank, like using a credit card or when you're borrowing money to buy a car or buy a house, as you get older, you'll do more of this. You probably don't have a credit card right now. There are a few factors that influence how much money you pay back. And those are also true if you're depositing money. If you're saving money in an account, like in a savings account, that money also accumulates interest so that that value is increased over time. Those factors are principal, write this down please, which is how much money you're borrowing or depositing to save. The time, which is always in years, how long it's borrowed for, and the rate, which is the interest that is being charged. This is usually called annual percentage rate. So if you ever saw a TV commercial for like cars, they'll talk about APR financing. APR, that's what this is, annual percentage rate. And today we're talking about simple interest, which is the money paid only on the principal. So if it's paid on the total instead of just the principal, that's called compound interest that you're going to learn in the future. So number 1, Joe borrows $200 from the bank, and he has to pay that money back, right? He's borrowing that money. But since he's borrowing it from a bank, which is a business, they need to make some money off of you, right? It costs money to borrow money. That money that it's costing you is called interest. So this bank is charging 6% interest, and he's borrowing that money for 3 years. I want to know how much that money is, that interest, that money he owes to borrow the $200, and what the total money is, which is including the $200. So we're going to solve this using a proportion, kind of like we've been practicing with all the other kinds of problems we've been doing. So percent over 100 equals change over original. In this case, it will be percent over 100 equals interest over principal. So the original amount is called a principal. So in this word problem, do you see the percentage? That's going to be going in the percent spot. And the interest that he owes, that's what we're looking for, so we're going to use a variable. And the principal, if you see on your notes right on top of number 1, that's the initial amount of money that he borrowed, the original amount. And how much is that? 200. So this is your proportion setup that you're going to solve. So to get n by itself, you're multiplying both sides by 200, so that n is all alone. Divide this by 100, divide this by 100, which is just 2. What is 6 times 2? 12. So n equals 12. And this is the number of dollars of interest for only 1 year. That is only 1 year. How many years are we interested in here? 3. So if 1 year is $12, how much would 3 years be? 36. So times 3 would be 36. $36 is the amount of interest he owed after 3 years, but I also want to know how much the total money he owes. So 36 is the how much it cost for him to borrow money, basically. How much money did he originally borrow? 200. So how much total does he have to pay back now? You have to add it back to the principal. So $236 would be your final answer. Any questions about number 1? Number 2. Interest is not only how much it costs to borrow money, like not really how much it costs, but how much additional money you also have to pay back depending on how long you're borrowing it for. It's also money that you are paid. So let's say you are putting money into an account, or in this case into bonds, you're investing money, and you are going to the bank to do that. The bank, which is a business again, is going to thank you for choosing their company by paying you interest. So let's say he is investing $5,000 in bonds. That bank is going to thank him for choosing their company and pay him a 7% interest. So your money that you're putting in is making money on itself if you don't touch it. Okay, so that's what interest is if you're earning it. So here, this $5,000 is for 6 years at a rate of 7%. How much did he earn, and how much total is that now worth? So same setup here. Percent over 100, which will be 7%, equals the interest is what we want to figure out. And how much was the original principal amount? $5,000. Go ahead and solve this proportion. Multiply both sides by 5,000. So we have n equals, and then divide by 100. So we're left with 50. What's 50 times 70? 50 times 7. 350. So that is the number of dollars in interest he earned after 1 year. How many years are we interested in? 6 years. So we want 350 times 6, which is 2,100. Very good. This is only how much interest he earned. He originally put in $5,000 and he earned $2,100. How much total is that bond worth now? You have to add it together. Good. So $7,100. Number 3 says that Grace is borrowing money, but she has to pay back, right? Again, nothing in life is free. You can't just borrow money. You have to pay for it. So the longer you borrow that money for and the more you borrow, the more interest you also have to pay. So she's borrowing $3,500 and she's going to repay it after 5 years. And the rate that she is being charged is 8%. How much interest will she be paying? So it's not asking for a total this time. It's only asking how much extra she needs to pay. She has to return that money first of all. Okay, but how much extra? How much is the interest only that she needs to pay? So same setup here. Percent over 100 equals interest over principal. Percent over 100 equals interest is what we're looking for. And how much is the principal? 3,500. Solve this proportion, please. I'll let you finish this on your own. Multiply both sides by 3,500. N is by itself now. Divide by 100 here, so we have 35 times 8, which is 280. That is only for 1 year. How many years are we looking for? 5 years. So 280 times 5 is? $1,400. It doesn't ask for the total, but if I wanted to see the total amount of money Grace had to return, how much would that be? How would you find it? Right, you would take your interest and add it back to the principal. Okay? Paige deposited $1,500 into a savings account, which I kind of already talked about. Savings account, if you put money into that account, you try not to touch it, that money is going to make money on itself just by sitting there. The bank is thanking you for using their company, and they're paying you interest for letting you keep your money with them. Okay? So she puts money, $1,500, into that account, and they're asking how much she will have in that account after 3 years if she's earning at an interest rate of 4%. Is it asking for interest only, or how much total is in her account? Read this question again. How much will she have in her account? It's asking for total or interest only? Total. Even though it doesn't say the word total, if you read that question carefully, you'll realize that it's asking for the total amount of money that she has in her account after earning interest. So set it up the same way. What's the percent? Over equals over 1,500. Good. Go ahead and solve this one. Multiply both sides by 1,500. This n is now alone. Divide by 100. I am left with 15 here. 15 times 4 is 60. And this is how much interest in 1 year. How many years do I want? 3. So times 3 would be 180. Am I done?
No.
I'm not done yet because I want to know how much money she has in her account. This is just how much money she earned by keeping it in the bank. She originally put in $1,500. So what happened to that money? Did it disappear? No, it's still there. So I need to add her own money to the money that she earned. How much total does she have? 1,680. Make sense? Okay, so from earlier we talked about those three factors that influence whether, how much interest is going to be paid or earned, right? What are those three things? Principal and rate. Right, principal, how much you're borrowing or how much you're putting into your account. Time is always in years, and rate is always a percentage. Now that percentage, you need to make sure you write as a decimal. Okay? When you're doing it as a proportion, it's just that number, but in the formula that I'm going to show you, you need to make it a decimal. So far we've been given the principal, we've been given the time, and we've been given the rate, and we find the interest. But what happens is that oftentimes we are given problems that you are missing a different piece of the puzzle. So like this problem, for example, Jaylen borrows $500 from the bank, 3% interest, and pays $90 worth of interest. How many years did she borrow for? So now we are given the answer. $90 is the interest, but we don't know how many years. So when we have this kind of problem, there is a formula you can use to plug in what you do know. And I want you to write this down. Simple interest equals principal times rate times time. I equals P times R times T. So back to this Jaylen problem. I know that the interest is $90 because they already told me that. That was the answer that we've been solving for, but this time they already told me. How much is the principal? How much did she borrow? How many dollars? 500. Do they also tell us the rate? 3%. Now, remember I said it has to be a decimal. So what is 3% as a decimal? 0.03. And then, do they tell us the time in years?
No.
Nope, that's what we're looking for. So this time, we don't know the t, and we want to solve for it. It's just a regular equation that you know how to solve. P times R times T equals 90, but we're missing the t. So 500 times 0.03 is 15. And then now it's just a one-step equation. How do I solve for t now? Divide both sides by 15. So that t is 6 years. To answer the question that you're all thinking, yes, you can use this formula to solve number 1, 2, 3, and 4, the ones we just did. And I'll show you. For example, this one was your number 4, right? About Paige. This one, if we use the formula, which is I equals P times R times T, do they give us the interest?
No.
Nope, because that's the question. How much interest will she earn? So we don't know what I is, so we're going to leave that there. Do they tell us the principal?
Yeah.
What's that? 1,500. Do they tell us the rate?
4%.
Can I write 4 there?
No, 0.04.
0.04. Do they tell me how many years?
3 years.
So now you can solve for I. So all the problems we did so far is you just multiply all three numbers and you get the interest. Okay, if they're giving you a problem where it's the time missing or the principal missing or the rate missing, then you need to solve by dividing because that's the missing piece. Does that make sense? So here you would solve it by just multiplying all three and you get 180 just by using the formula. Okay? So let's do number 5 together. Go ahead and use that formula we just learned. Ben deposited $1,940 in a savings account because he wants to put his money into the account so that it earns money on itself just by sitting there. The yearly interest rate is 2%, and he earned $310.40 of interest. Just by letting it sit there, he made $300-something. Okay? I want to know how long he had the money in the account for. So let's start with our formula. I equals P times R times T. Do they tell me the interest? How much money did he earn? $310.40. Do they tell me the principal, which is how much money he put in the first place? What's that? 1940. Do they tell me the rate? What number is that?
2%.
Very good. 0.02. Remember not to use just the percent number. Make it a decimal. And do they tell me the years?
No.
That's what I'm looking for. So go ahead and multiply these two numbers so that you can have something to divide by. And solve for the t, which is in years. When you multiply the principal and the rate, you should get 38.8. And then to solve for t, you need to divide both sides by 38.8. T equals 8 years. So he had the money in his savings account for 8 years in order to make $310.40. So now, as a total, he has that plus the principal. Okay? Madison paid $2,910 worth of interest on her credit card during a 2-year period. This means that she has a credit card and she's using it to spend on stuff, but she hasn't paid her credit card bill yet. When you're paying something with credit, you're paying with imaginary money. You don't have that money, you're paying based on credit. The company is trusting that you will pay them later. Okay? So she paid $2,910 worth of interest, which is how much it costs for her to use that imaginary money until she pays it off. Okay? The principal amount that she originally paid, which is on spending on things, was $9,700. If the credit card charges simple interest, what was the interest rate she was paid? So I equals P times R times T. Do they tell us the interest?
Yes.
What is it? 2910 equals. Do they tell us the principal amount? $9,700. So I'm going to write that in the P spot. Do they give us the R, the rate? No, that's what we're looking for. What is the interest rate? So I'm going to write R. Do they give us the time in years?
Yes.
2. Go ahead and solve for R. So you're multiplying the 9,700 times the 2, which should be really easy. That would be 19,400. Now divide both sides by 19,400. Keep in mind that this number is the inside number when you're dividing. So it's going to be 0 point something, right? Because it doesn't even go in. It's smaller. So it'll be 0 point something. 15%. So the credit card is charging a rate of 15%. So if she doesn't pay her card off right away, she needs to pay 15% of what she owes. Number 7, John paid $1,184 worth of interest on his credit card, so same as Madison. He's paying interest during a 2-year period. If the interest paid is simple interest and the rate is 16%, this time they told us the rate, what is the principal amount that he originally charged on his card? So again, interest equals principal times rate times time. What is the interest? 1184. What is the principal? We don't know. That's what we're solving for. So we're going to put P. What is the rate?
16%.
Can I write 16? 0.16. Very good. What is the years? 2. Go ahead and solve for P. 0.32 P. Divide both sides by 0.32. Principal is $3,700. So he charged that much on his card, and then he paid 16% interest, which was $1,184 over 2 years. Okay, any questions about today's lesson? Alrighty, number 2 is what you learned today. Ready? Share.